What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It is Monday, July 15th, 2019. Halfway through the month here, a lot of stuff going on. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Sam is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and observations. Okay. Over the weekend, a lot of stuff was happening. Bastille Day was yesterday, and they had a 5-hour blackout on Manhattan's west side. Now, the official story coming out of Con Ed, this is in the New York Post. They can't figure out what happened, but others are reporting they had a transformer explode. And I've actually seen a transformer explosion, and it's noisy, to put it delicately, but I think that's what happened. But Con Ed is saying they don't really have an explanation for why the whole system went down, but it was down for 5 hours. A lot of people out there saying, oh, it's a terror attack, it's Antifa, it's hackers, it's cyber criminals. But Con Ed is saying, well, we're not really sure yet here. Turning toward the southern states here, Tropical Storm Barry didn't quite get to hurricane strength, but it is still causing all kinds of problems. Apparently over in Alabama, sewer systems are overflowing, so raw sewage is being poured out onto the streets and farmlands. More flooding in Mississippi and Louisiana. And it's not like these states weren't already waterlogged from the spring melt floods. In fact, there is a concern that Storm Barry is washing away even more of the U.S. agricultural output, which means we're going to be looking at some serious food shortages toward the end of this year. So you might want to think about, stocking up, canning, freezing, whatever. All right, turning over to Jeff Ebstein. He's in court right now for his bail hearing. Apparently, a lot of his accusers are in the court, urging the judge to keep him locked up until the sex trafficking trial. And I would tend to agree with that. Jeff Ebstein is a flight risk. He's got lots of money. He still has that Gulf Stream. He can go wherever he wants. And we're going to keep an eye on that and see what develops later in the day. But as of right now, the hearing is still going on. Over at CNN, Chris Cuomo was out there saying, don't get caught up in the intrigue of who was better friends with Epstein. Frankly, who cares? The real story is how his case was handled back in 2008. And Cuomo is definitely correct about that, up to the point where we find out which one of his friends intervened to get the deal. Somebody went on in and talked to Acosta and said, he's above your pay grade, he's intelligence, leave him alone. We need to know who that person was. So, anyway. All right, the House has passed a $733 billion National Defense Authorization Act, and it may face a veto. A lot of people are very concerned about that. Trump is talking about vetoing it because it includes 2 provisions to defund both the Yemen and Iran wars, and Trump is very unhappy about that. He wants those wars to continue. And as a matter of fact, Representative McCall, the ranking Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committees, Michael McCall, basically condemned the act, saying it's dangerous and reckless, and it would illegalize the war on terror. So he is also dissatisfied with amendments that limit overseas warfare. Now, there's no limit to overseas warfare as long as Congress approves. That's what the Constitution says. Only Congress can declare war. and the authorization for the use of military force was unconstitutional right from the get-go. But it allowed George W. Bush and subsequent presidents to engage in war, and allowed Congress to kind of whistle and look the other way and duck any responsibility for what was going on. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Joe in California. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. Mike, aren't you being a bit pedantic about the Congress, only the Congress declaring war and the Constitution? Come on. It's the 21st century. Get with the times.
Well, read the Constitution.
No, I agree. Mike, what's the story with this Maxwell woman? Is she being prosecuted, or does she have some sort of state protection as well? We were told that she was the one, this Ghislaine, I'm pronouncing her name right, Ghislaine Maxwell. She was obtaining these young girls for
yes.
This scheme.
Well, she's not being prosecuted. She ought to be. Right now, she's working for a modeling agency and basically trying to stay out of the media attention.
I guess because she's Maxwell's daughter, she gets a
that doesn't help.
Card. No. But Mike, these visitors to the island, the Ebstein Island, you were asking why would these powerful people go? At least the politicians, I would think 99% of them are already compromised, so they had nothing to lose anyway.
Well, I disagree. I can't imagine that they're going to be saying, well, I'm already compromised by this group over here, so I'm going to let myself get compromised by Jeff Epstein. They obviously got suckered in. They were convinced that they were perfectly safe, indulging in their lusts, if you will, on the island. But it's starting to emerge that, Epstein was running video cameras all over the place. Apparently, he blackmailed some of his investors not to demand their money back. It's one of the ways that he made his fortune. He's just a real scumbag. And anybody who went down to that island or to the mansion in Florida or any of his other properties to indulge in sex with underage girls, they were just being idiots.
Is there any news on his appeal for bail?
They're still having the hearing. I'm waiting, and keeping watch until we find out what's going on. But if they let him go, you'll never see him again.
Yeah, I mean, if they let him go, this has the makings of another Roman Polanski case.
Yes.
I mean, we'll never see him again. So, but Mike, what this tells me is, our real rulers today are the intelligence agencies.
Yes.
Especially with the technology the technology that they have at their disposal, their surveillance of everyone, their blackmailing of judges, of other politicians. I think they are our real rulers. At least in my opinion, it's the intelligence agencies and the mafia. They are the real rulers of this world.
I agree. Certainly of this country.
Certainly in this country. And last point, Mike, you had a caller last week, very interesting guy from Arizona. He was talking about Madoff and how he believes, Epstein will end up in Israel. But I was a little confused. He mentioned, and I believe Madoff is in jail because Madoff, he betrayed his fellow Jews. He ripped them off as well. So
yeah,
I believe
that's why he got the jail sentence.
Right, but I was a little confused that this man, and I don't know if you agreed with him, he said Ariel Sharon is still alive. I don't believe that. I believe he's dead. What would he have to, he wasn't, what was he fearful of in terms of, what was he fearing for justice, or I was a little confused by that. I believe Ariel Sharon is dead.
I would tend to agree with you, but in Israeli politics, there's a lot to be afraid of. Revenge for Yitzhak Rabin, for example, and just Israeli politics tends to get even more rancorous than American politics. And so you start looking, there's a lot of potential for wet work.
Yeah. Oh, Mike, last point. There's a very interesting article posted today on the UNS Review by Ron Unz. Ron Unz, he's a great man. I'll tell you, I have much respect for him. He wrote about basically it covered a lot of material, including James Gardner from the Rockford Files, who was basically he had a lawsuit against MCA, and he was beaten up. And you cannot find any information about this incident against James Gardner. But the article itself talked about how it was basically a looting operation. All the Japanese property that was owned by those Japanese who were imprisoned in those concentration camps during World War II, all their property was basically just looted by the mafia.
Yes.
And friends of Harry Truman for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, it was. It was
German property as well. German property, billions in today's dollars, billions of dollars.
Yep.
So I'll just leave you with that. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Joe. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates just now rejoining our network. And so far, no result in the Ebstein hearing on his bail. But again, if they let him go, it's going to tell you that the fix is definitely in with that judge. And he'll be gone. He'll be off down in the Cayman Islands playing canasta with Ken Lay. All right, Iran has issued a statement regarding the tanker wars. And basically, Foreign Minister Mohammed Javad Zarif warned his British counterpart Jeremy Hunt in a phone call that Iran plans to continue its oil exports under any conditions. Zarif also repeated Iranian demands for the British to release the Grace 1 oil tanker seized over a week ago after it was boarded by Royal Marines off Gibraltar. It had been carrying 2 million barrels of Iranian oil, was alleged to have been bound for Syria, a violation of EU sanctions. However, Tehran has accused the Brits of fundamentally doing the United States bidding. Now, Hunt has informed Zarif that the British will release the tanker if it receives guarantees it would not go to Syria. So there's kind of an interesting little development there. All right, we're going to go back to the phones. John in Arizona. Aloha, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I've been to hell and back, Mike.
I'm sorry?
I've been through a lot over the last few months.
Okay.
I've been online dating somebody claiming to be Senator Kirsten Sinema, and even if it's not Senator Kirsten Sinema, she gets credit for helping me save America because, at least in spirit, it has been Senator Kirsten Sinema. I'm partnering up with Alex Jones and Doctors Without Borders to provide health care for the people south of the border in compliance with the Monroe Doctrine. I have my own line of medicines that's going to save our medical system. It's going to get us out of the national responsibility for the national debt because my medicine is going to back our currency.
Well, good for you.
It's going to be amazing, Mike. And I owe a big thanks to you because you helped me out a lot. And I built a Democratic National Committee and told them to give you a bunch of money. Because
I got the email.
Anarchist for the Democratic
I got the
National
email. Yes, and it would be very nice if the Democratic National Committee carried through with that. I don't really think it's going to happen.
Well, I billed them today, so let's see what happens. And my lawyer got the copy of the bill.
Okay, well, that would be nice if it happens. I mean, it does represent a fair chunk of
Let's keep
change.
our fingers crossed, Mike, because you deserve it, buddy. Have a great day.
All right, thanks an awful lot, John. We're going to let you go. All right, the phone lines are open now. Now, apparently, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is not willing to send back the diplomats to Iraq's embassy in Baghdad after they were evacuated earlier this year in May. This is according to State Department officials. The evacuation came after tensions between Iran and the U.S. escalated in the Gulf, at the result of which Washington said its forces, diplomats, and citizens were under threat of being targeted. That, I think, would be that $750 million embassy, which apparently for all that money is not considered secure here. Up in Ukraine, a Ukrainian television station in Kiev was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade, and apparently this was ahead of the screening of the new Oliver Stone documentary that features an interview with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Now, Ukraine 112 is a 24-hour news network, is owned by Taras Kozak, who's running for parliament for the opposition Bloc Party, organized by Viktor Medvedchuk. So that's getting very tense over there, rocket-propelled grenade. The United States is starting to eye Sri Lanka as a hub for military logistics in that part of the world. And for some reason, this links back to the Easter Sunday terror attacks in Sri Lanka, in which 259 people were killed and over 500 injured. They were originally attributed to the Islamic State, but there is no hard evidence available to substantiate this claim, and it remains an open question as to just who pulled this off. So apparently they've arrested a few people, but the United States is now getting ready to move on in and use it as a military logistics hub, which is military speak for a fancy parking lot. We're just going to put a bunch of stuff here just in case we need it here. The Taiwan arms deal continues to have reverberations around the world. And following that arms sale, China is now holding military drills on their southeast coast, air and naval drills. And in a brief statement, and without giving an exact geographical location, the ministry said the People's Liberation Army had in recent days held the exercises. They're saying these drills are routine arrangements in accordance with annual plans for the military. So they're basically rattling their sabers. China is also saying they're going to sanction U.S. defense firms involved in this military sale to Taiwan. So they're getting out the sanctions pens again. A lot of tension over there. Okay, Russia has spotted 18 foreign spy aircraft near their airspace over the past week. And these are described as foreign aerial vehicles, which means most of them are probably unmanned drones. But they were conducting reconnaissance activities near Russia's airspace. And Russian jets have been scrambled 3 times to prevent foreign aircraft from crossing into Russian airspace. Now, of course, every time this happens, the U.S. denies that they're entering Russian airspace. They'll claim to be in international airspace. Who really knows what's going on here? Down in Turkey, they have received the first batch of the S-400 missile system, along with experts from Russia to train the Turkish military how to use them correctly. And apparently there were 5 plane loads of equipment that were arriving yesterday. And Turkish President Recep Erdogan is saying this deal with Russia is one of the most significant contracts in modern Turkish history. And now all of a sudden a lot of people are saying, does this mean that Turkey is aligning more closely with Russia? Are they thinking about leaving NATO? We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're just checking up on the Jeff Epstein hearing. And apparently a lot of evidence has been presented to document that he is a flight risk. Apparently, when they raided his Manhattan home, and they opened the safe, they found piles of cash, large number of diamonds, which are always good anywhere on the world, and more importantly, an expired Saudi passport. It wasn't his name, but it was his photo. And it underscores the fact that, yeah, this guy probably has got an escape portal set up. And so I'm hoping the judge is going to say he stays in jail. Okay, we have a caller waiting on the line, Don in Iowa. Aloha, Don. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Yes, according to this judge, the judge will he'll tell on Thursday whether they're going to give him bail or not.
Oh, darn. I was hoping we were going to hear that today.
There's absolutely no doubt that if this guy's not a flight risk, there is nobody in the world that's a flight risk. You know, I mean, they kept Roger Stone. Roger Stone didn't have a passport. They kept him in jail for a while, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Ken Lay, that was a suspicious, very, very suspicious death. The guy immediately died. He immediately got cremated. Nobody saw his corpse.
Yep.
The Aspen, Colorado coroner did issue a death certificate, but you know, when you got that kind of money, you can. Ken Lay has a whole lot of money. You could.
Well, he had a whole
ton
of money, but in this case, I mean, you know, Jeff Ebstein, according to Alex Acosta, has intelligence connections, and there's a lot of people like the Clintons who just want him to go away because it's still looking like Hillary Clinton is thinking about stepping into the Democratic race for 2020, and this is something that she does not want to be carrying into the campaign.
Yeah, well, when Ken Lay died, his wife still had all the money. That was the reason he had to die, because if he would have survived, then they would have eventually got to that money from his wife. But since his wife was there's something to do with that. So, but anyway, yeah, Epstein. There's no doubt he has so many connections to Israeli intelligence, is what it is. This Maxwell's Giselle Maxwell,
yep.
Giselle, whatever. His main partner in life was her. He was the one. She was his pimp, and his what they said was she was basically organized, like his chief of staff. She organized everything for him. I mean, this guy had a weird life. And I want to see his tax returns. How did he make money? He had one client. This one billionaire. He didn't have a whole lot of. He wasn't not really a hedge fund manager. But here he is sitting here with almost $1 billion. He admits he has $507 million, and he only worked for a few years for Bear Stearns. I don't know if he can make all that kind of money.
Well, after he left Bear Stearns, he started his own company.
Right, but people are saying that this guy didn't work and he didn't have any clients. Who were his clients? I mean, did he really have a hedge fund? That's in doubt. You know. So,
well, one of the stories that's come on out is that he borrowed a lot of money from people that he lured down to his island, got them on video doing things with underage girls, and said, well, "Look, I'm not going to pay you back."
This is crazy. I mean, you know, people are not that stupid to do that. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are not above paying some woman somewhere for some sex, but to do something like this, you're walking right into a punch. You know,
I agree. I agree. They have to be incredibly stupid.
Right. They're supposed to be smart. I don't even know what Clinton was doing down there. I mean, you know, there's something fishy about this whole thing. It stinks, and we just have to wait and see what's going to happen. I'll let you go, Mike. Thanks.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. The phone lines are open. We're going to clear the lines there just a little tiny bit. Okay. Over in Germany, Angela Merkel has had yet another one of her shaking bouts, and word is now starting to spread that she may have to hand over power to her successor sooner than planned, because obviously there is something going wrong with her health. And again, I don't like Angela Merkel. I don't like her policies, but I empathize with her dealing with these medical issues. So there may be a transition in power in Germany in the very, very near future. All right, we already talked about China threatening sanctions against U.S. companies selling weapons to Taiwan. And, you know, the U.S., when they're selling arms to Saudis, they call it exporting human rights. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And so we're talking about U.S. arms export to Saudi Arabia. And they call it exporting human rights. What utter nonsense. Okay, a little while ago, there was this kerfuffle that the British foreign minister, the British ambassador rather, sent some messages home that heavily criticized U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration. And immediately there were accusations out there that the Russians had hacked into these messages and made them public, that it was the Russians that leaked them to the Daily Mail. And of course it led to the resignation of this ambassador and his replacement. But apparently the British government has examined the situation and said they have found no evidence of computer hacking at all. So it wasn't the Russians. Somebody inside the British government said, ooh, this stuff is juicy, let's give it to the Daily Mail. We seem to be in an attitude right now, no matter what happens, it's the fault of the Russians. Okay? The dryer broke down, it's the Russians' fault. The computer won't work, oh, it's obviously the fault of the Russians. I can't sleep at night, it's the fault of the Russians. Just goes on and on and on. Anyway, yesterday was Bastille Day, and of course, big celebration. It's the anniversary of the day the French Revolution really got underway and basically broke into the Bastille and freed all the prisoners. And there was a parade held at the Champs-Élysées to mark the national day. And there was some good and there was some bad. One of the cool things that happened, somebody was flying overhead on a jet-powered hoverboard. And just absolutely amazing. French inventor just came on out and said, this is the day to debut my invention. And so he was flying around. Other things, not quite so good. There was a little bit of an upset where some of the yellow vest protesters got out there, and French police had to use tear gas to disperse protesters who occupied the Champs-Élysées hours after French President Macron, together with European leaders, took part in the military parade. Prior to the police reaction, the protesters started destroying the barriers installed on the streets, trying to build barricades and chanting Yellow Vest movement slogans. So, very active city over there. Somebody has done a survey, actually it's Pew Research Center, and discovered that the vast majority of U.S. veterans and the public believe that the Iraq and Afghanistan wars are not worth fighting. Public opinion is turning against all of these wars, and more than 60% of U.S. veterans surveyed stated the Iraq War was not worth fighting, considering the costs to the United States. And 33% of veterans said the Iraq War was worth fighting when considering the benefits to the United States, which is Iraq oil being sold for the U.S. dollar. So, anyway, the numbers were pretty much the same all down the survey. But overall, public opinion is definitely turning against these wars. I imagine a lot of the veterans who served in those wars aren't proud of what they did. I can imagine they're not proud at all of what they've done. Alrighty, over in Israel, the Jerusalem Post ran a story saying that a new war between Israel and Palestine is not far away, and it will be deadlier and more destructive than any previous offensive. And according to this article, Israeli officials have repeatedly said that any future war with Hamas will have to have a clear and decisive win by the Israeli military, so the other side will think twice about going to war in the future. So it looks like it's really going to crank up and get bloody over there. The military chief of staff, Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi, has already approved operational combat plans and recently set up an administrative unit to handle the formation of a list of potential targets in the coastal enclave for when the next war breaks out. Meanwhile, over at the United Nations, investigator Michael Link is out there saying that it looks to him like Israel is moving rapidly toward annexation of the West Bank. And we know Israel's been talking about that for a very, very long time, because that's Israel's idea of Middle Eastern peace. We want a piece of that country, and we want a piece of that country, and we want a piece of that country. And so basically Link, the UN Special Reporter for the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory, said it's moving much more rapidly, and on the horizon is something much more dramatic. Well, the Great March of Return is continuing. Protests in general are continuing in Israel. And this is a very sad story. Came out of Mondo Weiss here. Israeli soldiers shot a Palestinian child in the head with live ammunition at close range, and he was taken to the hospital where an x-ray scan of this kid's skull, 10 years old, they found over 70 bullet fragments lodged in the child's brain. Needless to say, the child is in critical condition. Anyway. Okay, we're always being told that Israel is a democracy. That's what the press releases are always saying. Apparently, Israel's Channel 10 News ran a series on police violence and abuse. It featured incidents between citizens and police officers which escalated into extreme violence. Same problem we have here in the United States. Before it aired, the National Deputy Police Commander called the news director, Rudor Benjamin, and threatened him and his staff with violence if they didn't cancel the show. In fact, that threat is a violation of the law. And when Benjamin declined, the officer bellowed, "We too can act against you. We know where your studios are and your personal vehicles, and we can lie in wait for you." Boy, that is just a little bit out there. Over in Ireland, there is still a battle underway regarding the ban on imports from Israel's illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. And the legislation to introduce such a ban has received majority support in both houses of Ireland's parliament, but the country's government is expected to try and wreck the legislation by invoking a little-known money message provision. And money messages rely on a clause in the Irish Constitution that states no law involving the expenditure of public finance will be enacted unless it's signed by the country's prime minister. So there is the monkey wrench in the gear train. Now, a paper drawn up by Michael McDowell, a prominent Irish lawyer and politician, insists that the legislation banning Israel's settlement goods does not require approval via a money message. And I would tend to agree with him because it doesn't involve an expenditure. Ireland isn't spending any money. They're simply saying, we don't want products from the illegal settlements to come on in. So we'll see what happens there and how tight Israel's grip on Ireland is. Back down in Israel, the opposition politician Benny Gantz, who's the leader of the Blue and White Party, former military head, declared last Thursday he does not intend to remove any settlers from the occupied West Bank. We're kind of getting this from everybody who's running for election this September. And in radio interviews, Gantz affirmed that his party is in favor of striving for an agreement so long it is based on strict adherence to the security arrangements and, of course, our historical right to the State of Israel, the Jordan Valley, the settlement blocks, and, of course, Jerusalem. He says there will be no return to the 1967 lines. Gantz also said that any arrangement that emerges in the context of peace talks would ultimately be brought to the people for decision. In other words, he's calling for a referendum. Now, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is out there trying to say the Palestinians have no connection to the land based on some ancient DNA found up in Europe, trying to claim that the Philistines, present-day Palestinians, actually migrated to Israel from Europe. Well, even if that was true, the vast majority of Jews living in Israel are Ashkenazi. They migrated from the area of Russian Georgia. But in point of fact, there are already some scientists who've come on out saying this politicalization of DNA is unacceptable. And it's too small a sample. They don't really know if it's representative of the population as a whole. Israel has signed a $100 million missile deal with the India Army and their Air Force, under which 1,000 missile kits will be transferred to India. And Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, this is an Israeli company which manufactures weapons for the Israeli army, signed the contract with Kalyani Rafael Advanced Systems Limited India for $100 million. And this will include 1,000 Barak 8 MR-SAM missile kits manufactured for the Indian Army and Air Force, according to the Jerusalem Post. This is a land-based configuration of the long-range surface-to-air missile. So these are air-to-air missiles that they're buying over there. Over in Venezuela, Guido is in more trouble, not just for his associates helping themselves to the humanitarian money. Apparently, the Venezuelan Minister for Popular Power for Communication and Information, Jorge Rodriguez, presented evidence linking Juan Guido with the theft of weapons from the Bolivarian Republic that were used in the coup attempt last April 30th. And Rodriguez said that after the events of April 30th, different lines of investigation were generated, one of which was the follow-up to the stolen weapons to perpetrate the coup d'etat. So Guido is not doing very well down there. Meanwhile, on Saturday, French President Emmanuel Macron said that he has approved the creation of a space command with the French Air Force. If they want to have a French Space Force, just like the United States. Trump just started one. We're going to start one too here. And basically came on out, said, to assure the development and the reinforcement of our capacities in space, a high command for space will be created in September. Said this is a true national security issue. All right, turning to some of our domestic politics here. Donald Trump did something amazingly stupid. He's being accused of racism after telling the progressive congresswoman to go back to where they came from, which was immediately embarrassing because of all of those ladies he's talking about. Only Ilhan Omar was born outside the United States. And apparently he's refusing to back down. He's basically accusing this woman of hating America, of hating what America is supposed to be. And there's no question, as progressives, that they're following the hardcore liberal ideology. But that was a bad call. The optics on it are bad. And Trump made a huge, huge, huge mistake on that part. Got to learn how to hang on to his temper here. Okay, there is a new internal Democratic poll in swing districts showing that Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar are extremely unpopular, and they may cost the Democratic Party the presidency and the House in 2020. Now, Ocasio-Cortez was recognized by 74% of voters in the poll. Only 22% had a favorable view. Okay, Omar, another member of the squad, was recognized by 53% of the voters. 9%, just 9%, had a favorable view. Socialism was viewed favorably by 18% of the voters, unfavorably by 69%. Capitalism was considered 56% favorable, 32% unfavorable. Okay, now a lot of people have been wondering what's going on with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the latest update is she's still at the Supreme Court. She's still on that bench. She has no desire to retire and allow Donald Trump to replace her with a conservative judge. So she's going to stay there just as long as she can. The surprise news is that Clarence Thomas is dropping hints that he may retire while Trump is president and Republicans control the Senate, to allow Trump to appoint a much younger conservative justice who could serve for 30 or 40 more years. So that will be a little bit of drama. And whoever's coming on in, whoever's going to be nominated, the liberals, they're going to go after him the way they did Kavanaugh. Oh, you did horrible things when you were young. You molested girls. You beat up little puppies. You had overdue library books. All righty, turning to the economic news. The cost of living is going up, and New Yorkers and San Franciscans are having to deal with that. Urban housing markets all over the world have grown way too expensive. It's one of the reasons Claire and I are looking at a rural place to settle into when we get to Indiana, just out in the boonies. And we'll just deal with the drive times to get into the market and everything. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here, starting with Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. You doing well?
Yeah.
Great. AOC, sorry.
Yes.
And her merry band of misfits. Those people don't like the United States. They don't really like what it was founded on. They want to change it.
Yes.
They think they can make it better. So, you know what? What Donald Trump tweeted, he's brash. He's impulsive. He's definitely not politically correct.
Yes.
But, like one Republican said, I was reading on the Daily Mail that he was basically referring to their riding. Go back there, fix that, and come back here and see if you can fix the United States. So, that Cortez woman, she really fixed her riding, didn't she? With all those jobs that were lost from Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah, and you said something that really grabbed me, and this is why I called. You said the cost of living is going up. You and I both know that that's not actually true. The purchasing power of the dollar is going down, and it's going down fast.
Okay.
Right?
Well, it's all relative when you have a floating currency.
Yes. 3 years ago, I bought something for $575, and on Friday, I had to rebuy it in order to do like a warranty exchange, and it was $729.
Yes.
For the same product. That is 8%, just over 8% inflation. So yeah, that's crazy. That's the cost of living going up because the purchasing power is going way down.
Yes.
And that's fast. 8% is just, it's full steam ahead. So, not a lot is different between your country and the country I live in. In fact, the Senate up here in Canada thinks that we should bring in more foreign workers, like temporary workers, to keep the, basically to stuff them into the food industry, to obviously to keep wages down so that the price of food doesn't jump. That was one of the recommendations.
Well, the problem is, and you see it here in the United States of America, if wages and salaries are jammed down, ordinary people can't afford to live anymore. I mean, it's great for the profitability of the large corporations, but to really keep the economy going, ordinary people have to be able to trade their skills and labor for decent wages and salaries so they can pump that wealth back into the economy, starting with the shopping malls, the car dealerships, and so forth.
Yes, exactly, Mike. There's
All right,
the music.
Al, got to let you go. Got to take a break for station identification. Back with another phone call after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we're going to go back to the phones to Dustin in New Jersey. Dustin, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Al, you're kind of correct, but America's already been changed because we're not America anymore. We're the United States of Empire. Yeah, we've already been changed to the fact where I don't think we're going to ever go back to being what we were when George Washington was around. There's just too much power and influence and money involved, like with the military-industrial complex. And we're Rome, which brings me to inflation. It's going to get worse because the world's moving away from the dollar, and Trump seems like he's escalating it. so
I don't think he can stop it.
Better. No, but he's helping usher it in with all this tariffs on everybody. Is he going to put sanctions on Turkey now because of the S-400?
Could very well be.
Which will just move them even
closer to Russia.
I'm hearing from people. Yeah, exactly. But Mike, I'm hearing from people I know who have family in Turkey, and they're saying even the media over there, who, the media and all the liberal cities over there, because, they didn't vote for Erdogan this past election, right? They voted because they're more liberal. They don't like this pushing them around. Turkey doesn't like to be pushed around.
Nobody does.
And yeah, but with the West doing it, and people who like the West over there, they don't like it because they're nationalists, a lot of them still, even though they're globalists, because they're like the West. So Trump is moving us. He's isolating us. He's doing what he said he was. One of the promises he wanted to, get out, not be globalist, be nationalist, pride in your country. But I don't know, Mike. Like you said, like with him making these crazy comments, the crazy comments, and then did you see that he's not going to do anything with the prescriptions now? Did you hear about that?
Yep.
Oh my God. What has he done then? I mean, I want all these Trump supporters to call in saying he's going to part the Red Sea and part the Atlantic Ocean and part the Pacific Ocean, because it's just nothing. There's no border wall. The wars are going on. He's selling all these weapons to Saudi Arabia. They're calling Saudi Arabia, we're selling them human rights or whatever. I mean, this is nuts. I mean,
And
Yeah,
nothing's being done about questionable vaccinations. Nothing's being done about our crooked election system. Nothing's being done to lower medical costs. Trump's a disappointment. There's no other way to describe it.
And no infrastructure. No talk from anybody about infrastructure. You know?
Yep.
I mean, and Mike, the British need some retraining on how to build ships. Because of the aircraft carrier leaking. My God. But, you know, they said the water is up to neck level in some of the parts of the ship, the aircraft carrier. So that's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad.
No, and I remember not too long ago, the British, they had some welding problems on their subs. You know, so it's a mess. And you know what I find just sick? It seems like the world is just we're all selling weapons to each other. Like, you would think, like, India would have something better to spend their money on than buying weapons from Israel. You know, like, you know, putting new infrastructure in India, helping the people out.
All of these countries, the U.S. included, we've got better things to be spending our money on. You know, but there's nothing in man's industry but his greed and his sloth. His heart is in his weapons.
Yeah, I don't know. If Trump gets back in, who cares if he does? Who cares if he don't? What's changed? Nothing. So It doesn't matter if he gets in or not. You know? Remember, that's all we had hope for, Mike. Like, this is all we had with him and Hillary. That was it. The scrapings of the bottom of the barrel.
Yes.
Pretty much, I think, you know?
And yeah, I'm getting a confirmation here that the decision on Jeff Epstein's bail will be announced on Thursday, but apparently the judge during the hearing did drop hints saying that in the case of sexual predators, the presumption is they'll continue to stay in jail. So he's telegraphing at least the intention to keep Epstein in jail. Of course, the judge could get a phone call late at night or a note under the door with a lot of zeros on it. So we'll see what happens on Thursday. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And something I mentioned before, apparently it's already happening. Story coming on out of Investment Watch blog. Food shortage warnings are already starting to appear. And we knew this was coming from those disastrous spring melt floods throughout the Midwest and the Mississippi Valley. And Tropical Storm Barry has just made things worse. So be very careful about making sure that you have enough food. Don't waste any of it. There's a big problem with food waste in this country. Half of all food winds up getting thrown away. We can't afford to do that anymore. Not in the current situation. All righty. Now, over at the Treasury Department, Treasury Secretary Steve Newcomb has confirmed that the U.S. could default on its $22 trillion debt in as little as 2 months if emergency measures are not taken, which I guess means going on out and starting to grab wallets off the American people. And he said, based on updated projections, there is a scenario in which we run out of cash by early September before Congress reconvenes. So what he's trying to do basically is goose Congress into raising the debt cap, the borrowing cap, before they head on out for their summer recess. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Mike in Brazil, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I just want to make a comment. You were talking about Ilhan Omar.
Yes.
And I've read some comments online that she's calling us racists and sexist and bigots and, you know, all the vile crap that can pass to somebody's mind. And I was wondering, why did she come to the United States if she knew we were racist and bigots and sexist and all that stuff. Why did she come to the United States? Why didn't she stay in her home country, where I'm sure she can't even get a driver's license to drive? Okay, because, the Islamic rules are very stringent, and they're not even allowed to drive if they don't have a male next to them. At least that's what I understand. But, for her to come out and say this about the United States after she has become a representative, she has become a member of the House of Representatives, and then she's lashing out at us, calling us racist. I mean, what is wrong with this woman? This is what I want to know. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well,
I'm surprised.
It's not a problem with the woman. The problem is that we Americans have lost the art of a debate. We had a caller on the show Friday who basically came in and said, the way you have a proper debate is you have a thesis, you have an antithesis, and out of the two comes a synthesis of something new, a new idea, a new piece of knowledge. We don't have that anymore. We have everybody's out there on Twitter screaming, you're a Nazi, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. That's not really a debate, and that's why nothing is getting accomplished.
Why? Maybe somebody ought to remind her the country she came from. Because, as I understand, she was not born in the United States.
No,
and
she's born in
maybe
Mogadishu.
somebody ought to make a little, a little comment. Say, hey, listen, the country came from does not allow women to represent people in whatever parliamentary form of democracy they have or they don't have. So the fact I felt profoundly insulted. This woman calling me a racist. I mean, it doesn't matter where I go. I'm still an American. Okay, so whenever somebody makes a comment like that, I feel personally, mortally damaged because I never hated anybody based on race.
Yeah.
I live in South America, Mike. All you have around are just brown-skinned people. So it would be unfair if somebody, to call me a racist when I live amongst them. I had Venezuelans working for me here because I did a major reform of my house. And I hired Venezuelans coming from Venezuela, refugees, and I paid them a good salary, 3 times as much as they earn in Venezuela. So, I provided food for them. I provided shelter for them. They didn't have to spend a penny, Mike. And how can anybody call me a racist? When I did all this stuff. And for this woman, Ilhan Omar, to come out and say that the United States is racist, then why did you come to the United States? That's my question. Why didn't you stay in your home country? If you think the United States is racist, fine, don't go there. Nobody's forcing you at gunpoint to go to the United States. Am I right or wrong, Mike?
No, you're absolutely right.
Trump, by the way, I want to make a side remark here. I would never apologize either for Trump's remarks. You know why? Because he's right. If she doesn't, if she feels out of place in the United States, then she should go back. That's what I would do. If I go to a country, for example, I'm in Brazil. So if I feel out of place, all I have to do is just purchase a one-way ticket back to Miami and get on the plane and get out of here. That's what I have to do. I don't have to raise I don't have to make an issue out of it. So Trump, I think he's in the right. He should not apologize for what he said, and neither would I. Your comment now.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I'm understanding where Trump is coming from, but my concern is the optics on it were bad, and it's going to be used against him by the liberals.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, the liberals are always looking for something to complain about. They're a bunch of Trump babies. We all know that. So Trump just gave them more ammunition, basically. This is what it is. So. But anyway, Mike, this is all I have to say, okay? Have a nice show now, and have a good day now, okay?
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go, and the phone lines are open now. So getting on back to the national debt, and apparently, according to this article on The Hill, Republicans are kind of struggling to find a backup plan for avoiding a default on that debt of $22 trillion. And leadership wants to attach an increase in the nation's borrowing limit to a budget deal, which would let them consolidate these two very difficult political votes. Because I'm sure, most Americans understand they raise the borrowing limit, it means future taxes go up. And I think most Americans are sick and tired of a government that can't balance its books, can't live within its means, and solves every problem that it has by just borrowing a lot more money and sticking future generations with the debt. But it can't go on forever like that. Sooner or later, something breaks and it comes apart. And $22 trillion, that is an awful lot of money, even for the U.S. government. Anyway, apparently today's Prime Day. Amazon is out there expecting to do $6 billion worth of sales. A lot of other places with an online presence like Walmart are holding sales as well, trying to compete for some of that business. But apparently you can now buy a do-it-yourself tiny house kit on Amazon. It comes with free shipping. It's called the All-Wood Cabin Getaway Model. It's a high-quality, multi-purpose tiny home or cabin for sale for $18,800 with free shipping to your property for those who want to live the primitive life. Okay, we're going to take another phone call. Art off the grid. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Talking about this Ilhan Omar. This speech that she just recently gave, I just absolutely stunned. And there's one thing that just really jumped out at me, and I've not heard anyone address this yet, when she said that, in fact, I can't get you, I can get you close enough to an exact quote. Oh, here it is. I got the exact quote right here. Something that I get criticized all the time is not what you think, so don't gasp. It's that I'm anti-American because I criticize the United States. I believe as an immigrant, I probably love this country more than anyone that is naturally born, and because I'm ashamed of it, continuing to live in its hypocrisy. Wait a minute. Anti-American, but you love this country more than I do. How does that even equate?
Yep.
I mean, here's a woman just outright openly admits, I'm anti-American, but I love the country more than you do, even though you were born here. Honey, you couldn't possibly love this country more than I do. You couldn't even get nowhere within, you couldn't get 3 stadiums away from me. That's how far out of the ballpark you are. There's nobody on the face of this planet loves this country more than I do. And I say that with great pride and arrogance. So these comments like this,
I love the country, and for the most part, I love the people, but there are definitely serious problems with the government.
Oh, absolutely. And, if she thinks that Islam is so great, I agree with the other caller. I'm not sure if she came here as an adult, but the way I read it was she came as a refugee, but it didn't say anything about her parents, so I'm assuming she came as an adult. Well, honey, if America's so bad and you think Muslim law is so great, why the hell did you come here? Why didn't you take your shari behind over to Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran or Palestine or Uzbekistan or one of those other stands or steins? Why did you have to come here? Nobody asked you to come here. We don't even want you here. And that's my attitude, and I agree with Trump. You don't like it here? Quit your bitching. Pack up and get out. I know that doesn't set well with a lot of people, but quite frankly, I don't give a damn anymore what anybody thinks. I'm fed up with this crap. You don't like it here? Get the hell out. Thanks, Mike. Have a great one.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. Phone lines are open now. Turning to the world of immigration and migration, the CEO of Volvo is warning that the company is considering moving its headquarters out of Sweden due to the rise in violent crime. So Hakan Samuelsson told a conference the car maker was losing its appeal to foreign experts and engineers, and further explained his concerns during an interview with SVD Näringsliv. We are building cars. We cannot solve the other problems. Someone else must do that. It's definitely not helping when people read about shootings in Gothenburg and wonder if they really dare to move to Gothenburg. Well, That's a very telling situation. Another article along the same theme, this one from Zero Hedge. Sweden is at war. And apparently last year, Sweden experienced a record number of lethal shootings, 306 in all. 45 people were killed, 135 injured nationwide, most deaths occurring in Region South, where Malmo is located. In March, the Sweden National Forensic Center estimated that since 2012, the number of shootings classified as murder or attempted murder has increased by almost 100%. The center also found that the most popular weapon used in the shootings is the Kalashnikov assault rifle. It's one of the world's most manufactured weapons and used in many wars. When they are no longer needed, they are smuggled into Sweden. So, Sweden, how's that open border policy working out for you? Are you feeling multicultural yet? Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, Merkel. Welcome back to our show here. And once again, Republic Broadcasting needs your help. Every little bit helps. There's no such thing as too small of a donation. The postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones here to Mike in California. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Mike. Just let you know I appreciate your show. I've been listening for a few years, and I've been thinking about calling you for a few years. The information you provide in other shows, like Lou Rockwell, Common Sense Show, Hagman, it's all about the corruption, the broken system, how they take our kids, our property, our rights. Well, we found you can't beat City Hall. You can beat a traffic ticket. When they come out and tell you that their grass is too long, and they put a fine or a lien on your property or steal your kids. We've had cases overturned. We even got the CPS to back off kids. And basically what we found is the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and say I live in California, we have a so-called republic. Overall jurisdiction in California, according to the California Republic, is common law. We focus on that, but mainly the way we beat City Hall is through administrative process. These jurisdictions are mentioned in the Constitution, along with common law, administrative law, and I believe law of the sea. What we do is we treat everything as an offer. We teach people you don't argue, you come in peace, and you act in honor. How you do that in an adversarial court. We know of the corruption. People tell us you can't beat City Hall, but we've done it. Basically, administrative law is just that which has the best piece of paper. If you understand the 4 points of a law, contract law, you can beat City Hall. We have probably, I'd give it 80-90% success rate. Code enforcement, bankruptcies, foreclosures. Haven't taken on the IRS. I'm not looking forward to that one. But there's a way to beat traffic tickets. So when they seize your property or kids, there is a way to fight back. And we have one. It's not a perfect record, but the last thing I would ever do is hire a lawyer. And I've been meaning to call you the last few years. People, what's the solution? What's the solution? Being part of a crowd and calling your senator or congressman or writing your senator or congressman, there's no effect. You don't win that way.
True.
And if we do vote, I'm sorry?
I said true.
Yes. So I just call in because I really appreciate your program. Your a variety of views, but also I actually called Coast to Coast about 4 or 5 years ago, and they hung up on me. Said I was a patriot conspirator. And I don't know about that, but basically, understand 4 points of contract, and you can beat City Hall. And I just, it's took me 8, 9 years. I've talked to groups sometimes. I got a lot of free lunch and dinners out of it, but we have brought peace to people, and that's the thing we do is I've been involved in groups from California to Phoenix to Reno, around Nevada, Arizona, parts east, and I just wanted to let people know, understand 4 points of contract, and you can get relief. And pray to God. We tell everybody, if you got Jesus in your life, or at least until you beat the traffic ticket. It's a spiritual battle, we believe, and it's also administrative. It's also just black and white. Who's got the best words? We keep it simple, and we don't argue. And that's about it. That's all I just wanted to.
Well, I would sure hope that maybe you can get in touch with that guy where the grass overgrew on his home because he was away taking care of his mother's estate, and the guy that he'd hired to keep the grass cut died, and he didn't know it. And now the city is threatening to foreclose on his home for the $30,000 in assessed fines for too long grass. Anyway, Mike, thank you for the call. God let you go. We'll be right back after these few minutes. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're talking about immigration and enforcement. And Pew Research has come out with a new study saying that the average illegal immigrant lives in America for 15 years. So you've got 22 million illegal aliens living in the U.S. for an average of 15 years, imposing this tremendous financial burden on the American taxpayer. And apparently, this duration has doubled over the last 2 decades. Used to be around 7.2 years. Now it's 15 years. There's no enforcement there. Now, they did start the ICE raids, actually started them Friday night, and some are working out very good. They've made some arrests. Others, apparently, the illegal immigrants were prepared with some questions, demanding to see a warrant before they could be arrested. And because ICE didn't have warrants, they had to basically leave empty-handed here. Up in Chicago, the mayor is saying, we'll obstruct justice to protect illegal aliens from deportation. And apparently over this last weekend, there were ICE raids in 10 cities. Somebody needs to start arresting all these people who are in violation of Title VIII. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi urged illegal immigrants to resist deportation Thursday, saying they have the right to refuse to open their doors to ICE officers who may try and arrest them in a national sweep. Mrs. Pelosi was in the vanguard of Democrats and immigrant right activists who stepped forward to try and thwart President Trump's plans to step up deportations of illegal immigrant families. She described it as a major test of whether Mr. Trump's get tough policies or their own more welcoming approach to illegal immigration will prevail. And Pelosi said these families are hardworking members of our communities and our country. This brutal action will terrorize children and tear families apart. And oh yes, don't forget to vote Democratic. I'm looking at the Fox News feed right now. They're still going on about these representatives, these progressive Democrats, responding to Donald Trump's tweets. Now, we know there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, but it does seem like the corporate media is mushrooming us all, keeping us in the dark, feeding us on poo, They're not talking about other important things. Yes, I think it was tacky for Trump to tweet that out. Yes, I understand these people had their feelings hurt, but this has been going on for like half an hour. And enough is enough is enough. Okay, reporter Sydney Hernandez traveled to the Texas border at apparently last Wednesday, about 6 p.m., and the deserted area on the banks of the Rio Grande is a well-known border crossing area. And during the next 6 hours, Hernandez sent out a series of tweets capturing the images of migrants walking up the dirt roads from the border river where human smugglers cross them at will. The migrant walk up to the first border patrol agent or other law enforcement, and they just turn themselves in and ask for asylum. And then they get into this catch and release program. So Hernandez said she witnessed 20 in the first group, 38 in the second group, then 40, then 50, then about 150. During the 6-hour stretch, she counted 298 migrants who illegally crossed the border from Mexico. Apparently, there is a problem up in Chicago where unaccompanied immigrant children are being sent. There are alarming outbreaks of flu, fever, chickenpox, and tuberculosis. This is not just an economic crisis. This is a health crisis. So Heartland Human Care Services, which operates 5 shelters in Illinois, said it's seen an increase in communicable diseases among minors who arrive there after processing at overtaxed customs and border protection facilities at the border. The largest increase in illness we are seeing currently is flu, fevers, and strep throats. So nasty, nasty stuff here. Okay, Chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Lindsey Graham, explained how migrant children are being rented to help other migrants claim asylum when attempting to cross into the United States over the southern border. So basically, Graham was being interviewed on Fox News and basically said that migrants will rent children, cross the border and say, we're a family, we demand asylum. And then the child is put on an airplane, sent back to Mexico to be rented out again. So it's a good idea that they're doing these DNA tests, which they started a while back, to basically say this child is not the offspring of these adults. So, all righty, we're going to go ahead and grab another phone call. Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, good day to you, Michael. I think you should move to Florida. But that one guy that keeps calling from New Jersey, he seems like he likes to bash Trump somewhat. What does he want? Trump's against abortion. He's against all this insanity with the Antifa and all this. These people going out beating up people for no reason. And, you know, the guy from New Jersey with all this taxes he's probably paying in that state, who would want to live in that hellhole? But, you know, Florida is a little different. But, Michael, getting back to, you had a couple callers really wonderful. You had a couple good callers on one caller about why she even come here. She hates this country. She should get the hell out of here. But, Michael, let's go to the chase. Do you think any of these people that are coming here illegally really care about the founding fathers of this country?
No.
Or Northern Europeans?
No.
You think they really give a damn about those men who made this the greatest country on earth that everybody wants to come to? These people don't care. They only come here for the jobs and the money, Michael. And that guy in New Jersey bashes Trump all the time. What do you rather have, a sleepy China Joe Biden? You want China Joe? You want a guy from who embraces China? This guy in New Jersey, he's always bashing Trump. Does he have anything good to say about Trump? Yeah, Trump might be a little kooky in some ways. But you know what, Michael? He's the one that brought up the wall. He's the one that brought up a lot of things that never would have been exposed, ever, for a guy like him. He has the balls to stand up and tell us these demons, what's going on.
Well,
that's what I got to say, Michael.
Again, Trump talks tough about the wall. He talks tough about a lot of things. In the end, it comes down to what actually gets done. And what I'm waiting to hear is a number of just how many illegal immigrants.
I might need to change my gown. I got a little syrup on there.
Okay, what I'm waiting to hear is an actual number as to how many illegal immigrants were arrested over the weekend, because it doesn't sound like they got very many.
Yes, sir.
So it's not being effective.
That's correct.
Okay?
Anyway, thank you for taking my call.
All right, Tom,
Thanks,
we're going to
sir.
let you go and switch over to Miles in Maine. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Good call by Tom. I love Art from Off the Grid. I wish I could get a hold of his show, but another great call by him, like you had so many. But I had a question for you, Michael, that I want to get your answer on and your perspective on. And that's simply, who do constitutional rights apply to? I mean, who do United States constitutional rights apply to?
They apply to the citizens of this country first and foremost, but courts have subsequently ruled that anybody standing in the United States of America is protected by the Bill of Rights.
Okay. Because I really don't understand this. If you're going to stand on U.S. rights and constitutional rights, and I'm an officer enforcing U.S. law, then you need to show me that you're privileged to the U.S. protections.
Well, a big part of the immigration problem right now is we do have the laws that allow for these people to be arrested and deported. It's called Title VIII, and it's just simply not being enforced. And you've got the obstructionist Democrats in Congress. They're fighting Trump on this tooth and nail because they're counting on those illegal immigrants to vote Democratic next year.
Well, if they had warrants for these people's arrests, then obviously they know enough about them to perpetuate a warrant for their arrest, the authorities who were pursuing them.
Well, apparently in one part of the country, ICE just showed up without warrants, and they had to leave empty-handed. Now, that wasn't true down in San Diego, where they arrested 20 criminal aliens and immigration fugitives.
Well, I think they should just do what they normally do. That wouldn't stop them from stopping a U.S. citizen. I mean, it happens all the time, and they get a, oh, excuse me, and then they, if they do get sued in court, they get a slap on the wrist. I say just go ahead and take them, and then let another judge rule on the legalities of them being taken when they couldn't prove that they were a U.S. citizen. If they just go ahead on.
I'm in
like
agreement.
Trump said, take the guns. Like Trump said, just take the guns first.
I'm in agreement. I'm absolutely in agreement. That, if they're an illegal immigrant, if they cannot document they're a U.S. citizen, just grab them and throw them on the bus.
Yeah. I just like to always check in with a sound, sane mind like yourself, Michael. Keep up the good work, and thanks for another good show.
All right, well, thank you very much here. We're going to let you go and switch over to Nathan in Northern California. Aloha, Nathan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. Am I coming in okay?
I hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, I got a kick out of one of the last callers you had who said they don't like it here, get the H out, and I thought that was great. I did hear Trump's speech when he was talking about, telling these people, if you don't like it here, leave. And he was speaking about one of the women who was discussing Al-Qaeda and sort of praising them. And he felt highly offended at that. And maybe he did lose his temper, but you have to realize that 90% of the media is against Trump, and they spin it all which way,
Well, that's
never
why
positive.
he's got to be careful. I'm not disagreeing with what Trump said. I'm just saying the optics on it are bad.
Yeah, okay. Well, I understand a little bit. But I do like a president who does speak his mind. I think people love that. And many people don't know this, but he is on a pace to raise $2.5 billion for his 2020 campaign. And Dustin mentions, oh, he's owned by Sheldon Adelson or whatever. Well, maybe when he did raise $600 million, but now with $2.5 billion coming in, I think it's going to be a bit of a different story. I don't think he's going to have the string to worry about compared to this particular, round in being the president. And, Dustin did call in and he said, well, I want to hear from Trump supporters and whatever, what you think. And, he keeps saying that nothing is happening. And that's just a bunch of nonsense. It just sounds like he's a whiny loser. And he doesn't mention that U.S. Steel is investing $1 billion in their Mon Valley facility in Pennsylvania. And they have Cameron LNG in Louisiana. They're doing a $10 billion facility. They're going to export 12 million tons of natural gas. He doesn't mention that Mazda Toyota in Huntsville, Alabama, is investing $1.6 billion in a 2,000-acre, 300,000 vehicles a year plant. And he doesn't mention Fiat Chrysler is investing $4.5 billion in 3 plants in the Detroit area. Doesn't mention anything about Foxconn. And, if this guy keeps saying that nothing is happening, give me a break. Go to the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM.org, and you can read all kinds of fascinating articles about how manufacturers are adding to their workforce 20%, doubling it, whatever. And this guy is, his comments are just terrible. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he wrecks your show. And anytime he calls in, I just click the whole show off. And that goes for Mark and Layla. I mean, Mark was talking, 10 days ago, and he was saying that he thinks that you and him and Layla and Dustin could run the country better than Trump. And I'm like, what the world is this? The What Really Happened comedy show? Give me a break. You know that movie, Airplane, when Lloyd Bridges was up in the tower and he crashed through the window and bailed out? Do you remember that scene?
I remember that scene.
Yeah. Well, I think that's Layla after about 2 weeks in the White House. The press is calling her a lunatic and a whack job and incompetent and this and that.
Let's not get personal here, okay?
Well, she calls in and she bashes Donald Trump all the time and says, oh, he's never going to fulfill his promise.
Nathan, great that manufacturers are doing well. But Donald Trump campaigned on vaccine safety. That's not getting done. He campaigned on cleaning up our job. Come on, Nathan, my turn. Trump campaigned on cleaning up our crooked election system. That's not happening. He campaigned on lowering prescription medicine costs. Now it turns out that's not going to happen. He campaigned on throwing Hillary in prison. That didn't happen. And he campaigned mostly on getting us out of these foreign entanglements. That didn't happen. In fact, we're getting more entangled as time goes on. So I think for the vast majority of the American people, great that the factories are getting built. But overall, Trump has been a major disappointment.
Well, Michael, one last question. What do you think that the Supreme Court would look like if Hillary was president?
I would be very unhappy to have seen Hillary Clinton as president, but Trump's a disappointment. Anyway, Nathan, we got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Back with another phone call after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Mo in Florida. Aloha, Mo. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Are you there?
Yes.
Hello?
I'm sorry. Is this Mark or Mo?
Mo.
Okay, I think I accidentally skipped over Mark. All right. So we're going to talk to Mo, then we're going to back up to Mark. Mo, what's on your mind?
Okay, Mike, listen, all I'm saying is this guy was coming down pretty hard on, on one of your callers. And I think, sometimes there's just a thread that follows through this whole thing. And if somebody really, and I voted for Trump, my wife voted for Trump and Pence, but these evangelists, these born-again Christians that believe that, Israel's the promised land and that Jesus is coming back to Israel, they don't realize what's really going on. The whole crux of this, of Trump's position on the worldview is he's a Zionist, Mike. The guy. Now maybe he's not deep down because he's not born, with the Ashkenazi Jewish, phony thing. But to me, I think that I can't figure it out. I don't know if he's taken in or he's going to expose them. But in my mind, this Zionism thing is, if somebody just, bottom line, somebody just Googles what percentage of the media is owned by is Jewish controlled. It's 98%. Well, how the heck is that possible? That means 98% of what we're getting through the mainstream media, which none of us watch if we're listening to good shows like yours, is bent towards the Zionists. Do you remember when Netanyahu gave his speech and the congressmen all clapped like a bunch of trained seals?
Yes.
This is embarrassing, Michael. This is not. We are, like you said, we are ruled by a foreign power. And I don't know, Ivanka's, converted over. Chabad Lubavitch, the Talmudic Jews, think that everybody that's not Jewish is just nothing but cattle. And they believe their Messiah is going to come and we're all going to be slaves to them. Now that sounds crazy. But if you read the writings, if you read the Rebbe's, the rabbis, that's what they're saying. And this is like the biggest scam that's ever, it's almost like it's so dystopian that I can't even believe it. But if you research it, it's there.
Yes.
And I know you know this, Mike, but we all got to be very careful because they run everything. Am I wrong or right?
Well, they run most of it.
98% of the mainstream media. Look at all the. I know that there are real Jewish people that don't believe in the Talmud. Now.
Okay, well, listen, Mo, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to do station break, and then I got a whole bunch of phone calls waiting as we get into hour number 3. So we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. So let's go to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, what's on my mind is I wasn't even going to bother calling today. But I just heard this guy, Nathan, mention my name in not a very nice way. So I just want to say what this guy sounds to me like is the typical Trump bot who thinks no matter what Trump does, everything is fine.
Yeah.
Just go with plan, everything he's planning. Okay, in the meantime, I don't know. I don't think the economy has really improved much of it to improve at all. Most of the people who got a break on that tax thing were actually the rich. Most of us didn't get much of a break at all. I got maybe about $20 or something. But besides that, clown fails to mention about all the stuff going on in the Middle East, that we're on the edge of war. Why Trump would push through the worst, most murderous neocon criminals in his, actually 3 of them, because you also got to remember Abrams as well as Pompeo, and, both in some of the highest positions of the foreign policy. Okay? And why we're so close right now to a war with Iran, why he got out of the Iran deal, one of the few good things I think Obama did. And on top of that, like you mentioned about the vaccines, He hasn't done, not only hasn't he done anything about that, but he actually, when with this silly thing about the measles, he's saying, "Oh, you should, everybody should get the vaccine," even though he disputed it when he was on the debate stage. Said there were dangers. The guy's a hypocrite. He's a fool. He doesn't know what he's doing. Not part of the plan. And I forgot to mention Julian Assange too.
Yeah.
Not only the fact, well, free Assange, but Obama was never putting Assange in jail. This comes from Trump and his Justice Department and his administration as a whole. And he won't do anything to free this man. So the guy's a hypocrite. And this guy, you know, put me down. Dustin, who I really like, I think Dustin's a really good guy, really knows, you know, what he's talking about. And I like Layla too. She may not like me, but I like her. Okay? I understand why she's bitter. I'd be bitter too. So, you know, all of that stuff. So for him, so like I said, if he wants to call in, if you can arrange it, we'll have a three-way conversation. I don't care. I'll show him up for the fool that he is, for the Trump bot that he is. I have it out with these people all the time on my, I've been unfriended by a bunch of people now on Facebook. People, I used to be a big supporter of Trump when he ran. I wanted to believe what he was saying, but he lied. Just about everything he said is either a lie, and even the border. He doesn't do anything in the border. Every time he gets any kind of resistance, he backs down. Backs down right away. This is a joke what he's doing too now too. You don't make an announcement like this that what you're gonna do. That's part of the law. You should be doing that all the time. You should be rounding these people up. They don't belong in this country. Get them out. That's immigration law. That was done before DHS. I told you, I was in law enforcement myself. I was in law enforcement and correction. When you had an immigration hold back then, you didn't dare let somebody go. That was it. They were gone. Immigration came by, picked them up. Adios, amigo. Or au revoir, if it's French, whatever the language. That's it.
Yep.
Trump's phony. The fake. That's why I don't like him anymore. That's why I'm supporting Tulsi Gabbard. Okay? I don't like a lot of Tulsi's policies domestically, but my attitude is this. Once if we can bring down this empire, and it's an evil empire, every empire the world has ever had is an evil empire. I want the constitutional republic back.
Yes.
Once we get rid of that empire and we can cut our budget, that bloated military budget, like at least by half, if not more, then we can look at things we might be able to do in this country domestically. And we can talk about it. We can't do anything until we get rid of the empire. As long as we have that empire, as long as we got to butt in to countries, it's none of our business. As long as we have other countries lobbying to keep us either in a war footing or at war, in this case I'm talking mostly about Israel and Saudi Arabia, and maybe Ukraine on top of it, okay? As long as this goes on, we're up, a creek without a paddle. So this guy Nathan, you want to talk, would it be okay if he calls me on a three-way conversation?
Well, I don't know if he's going to call back after hearing what people are saying about him. And I'm also getting a lot of email about him, that he was an obvious troll. And
yeah, I was thinking that too. He's a troll, but he's definitely a Trumpster. Okay, he's definitely one of these clowns that you see, going along. Or just stick with the plan. Stick with the plan. Assange isn't really being held in Britain. He's actually in the United States talking to Trump. Trump is using him for. Come on, we're not stupid. I mean, there are people maybe that dumb that'll believe that, but anybody with a half a brain is not going to believe that nonsense. Assange is rotting in that jail there in Britain, and Trump won't let him out. Trump got the key. He'll let him out. So, who's he kidding? He didn't do anything for Tommy Robinson either when Robinson made that appeal to come to the United States. Did Trump do anything? No. He didn't do nothing. And by the way, at this thing, thing with the that White House conference there they had about the tech companies, he didn't do anything about that either. It's a big joke to him. And he didn't let that one guy even into the White House, the guy who makes memes, because the guy talked again, I forget his name now. Anyway, because he makes me. He
Ben
did
Garrison.
a meme about Soros. Yeah, Ben Garrison. He made a meme about Soros. He said, "Oh, he's anti-Semitic." Anti-Semitic. Soros is a criminal. You talk about anti-Semitic. This guy was a Nazi war criminal. He was a collaborator. Okay, and he's one of the worst individuals in the world today. One of the most evil men in this world today. Yet Trump, but Trump, I understand, actually had to borrow money from Soros some years back for some project, I think, in Chicago.
Yes.
So let's not kid ourselves about Trump, Mike. Okay? I wasn't even going to call. I'm getting really fed up with all this stuff, you know, because I see this country going to you know what? I see it turning into crap. And I just, you know, it bothers me. It hurts me because I do love this country. And I don't like to see what's happening to it. So I'm getting to the point where I'm just starting to say, you know, listen to my music, enjoy my hiking, work out at the gym, and enjoy my dogs, and on weekends and stuff, see my kids and my grandkids. And, you know, because I'm getting fed up with this stuff, Mike. I really am.
Okay.
It hurts. It really hurts. So that's all I got to say, Mike. But it's, again, if this guy wants to call, hey, I'll make a monkey out of him. I promise that. Okay?
Okay, well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over to Stuart in Florida. Stuart, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Okay, how you doing? Well, you and Mark said a lot of what I wanted to bring up, but you know, the thing is, I know people who, you know, they're still, you know, Trump is doing the best he can, and said a lot of things like that possible troll you had on a couple of callers ago said. And you know, they can't handle the fact that you know that Trump is betrayed on so many issues. It's really, it shows you don't have to be a Democrat to be part of a cult, because it is a Trump cult. I mean, and then they'll give you, well, he's being sabotaged by everybody else. Well, the thing is, like you pointed out, he doesn't fight. You know, all he does is cave. And then he feeds you the BS. You know, it's the greatest economy in history. You know, Iran is a big sponsor of state terrorism. And, you know, the guy's a total joke. But, you know, maybe what's worst of all is the guy is an absolute coward. I mean, as you have pointed out many times, why aren't these mayors and governors being arrested for having sanctuary cities? Why is he announcing, like Mark pointed out, a raid that he's going to conduct when one, it should be, you know, ongoing, and two, you don't announce it. And then we have the latest issue with the census. He caved on that. The guy is he's an actor. He's not a leader. He's trying out for Broadway, and, you know, maybe he'll make it. You know, he's doing a good job that way. And with that, I'll sign off. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over to Jeff in North Carolina. Aloha, Jeff. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
First of all, Mike, I'd just like to say that Nathan up in New Jersey is completely wrong about everything that he said. All the manufacturing deals that are being finished up now were in the ground well before he even ran for office. That's number one. Number two, Mark in North Carolina, you're absolutely right. Dustin in New Jersey, you're absolutely right about everything. Mike, you are always right about pretty much everything, especially when it comes to war. You know, and everybody listening to this knows, that they are trying to crank up a world war because they know the economy is fixing to collapse, and they want to blame it on a war. They can't blame it on the bankers. They can't blame it on you. They can't blame it on me, but they can damn sure blame it on Iran or Russia or China. Every time we turn around, they've cranked up a whole new war. They have followed the plan just like Wesley Clark laid out a long time ago. Trump doesn't say anything about Yemen and the crisis going on in Yemen. When he ran on Julian Assange's ability to cough up 35,000 emails belonging to Hillary Clinton, and then, as soon as he gets arrested, oh, I don't know him anymore. He hung out with Jeffrey Ebstein for way more than 15 years. We got pictures. We even got the flight records from Jeffrey Epstein's plane. We know how many times Trump was on. Who else was on? No, it wasn't that many people. It was Trump and Clinton. A lot. And they're going to sit around and say, oh, well, we didn't know anything was going on. Oh, Trump's supposedly this huge businessman that's all savvy and everything. He can do deals and do this because he knows people. But yeah, he doesn't know that Jeffrey Epstein and what he's up to, the guy that he's palling around with, the guy who lives 3 doors down from him, right out of Mar-a-Lago, Florida. His house is 3 doors down from Trump's house in Florida. And he's going to sit there and act like, well, I don't know these. You know, what is he going to do with the guys, the 200 people that he just now brought up to Washington? These so-called social media influencers who are supposedly getting banned and demonetized. None of them have been banned. None of them have been demonetized. He brought up a bunch of guys that were already sponsored by YouTube. Their channels were already being fulfilled by YouTube. They still collect huge amounts of money, and they're all Trump bots, just like Nathan from New Jersey. They won't look at anything. Just like the immigration thing that's going on now. Trump said when he was running, well, I'm not going to telegraph anything. What do, Trump? You telegraph everything. You telegraph more than Obama did. Obama, in the same time in office, kicked out more illegal aliens out of this country in his same time in office. In his same time. He says he's not going to telegraph stuff. Well, we're going to send the ICE out. Well, how many people did they arrest? 20 people. Well, damn, at that rate, it's going to take 6,000 years to get these people out of our country. And that's all I got to say. I'm sick of the Trump bot. I'm sick of the Obama bot. I'm sick of the Clinton bot. All of y'all are frauds and liars. That's all I got to say. Have a good day.
All right, have a good day yourself. We're going to let you go and switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
This is a contentious day, Mike.
Yes, it is.
Wow. I'll tell you what, I have to agree with most of the callers here. I even agree with the initial guy that, Trump talks about things that haven't been talked about, but how do you avoid it? I mean, I voted for the guy. How do you avoid looking at the homeless, stuff that's in California? And how do you avoid looking at the wars? And Trump talked about all that, but everybody else is right as well. He hasn't done jack crap about it. And whatever it is, this country, Mike, is in. I know that you agree with me. I agree with you, actually, is the way it really is. But this country is in a death spiral in so many different ways.
Yes.
Fiscally, militarily, international relations and politically, culturally, in every way we're being invaded by these illegal aliens. Our country is controlled by the guys that Mo was talking about. Mo is absolutely right. Whatever, if Trump can talk about it, big deal. That was enough to get him elected, but that's not enough to get us out of the death spiral. We need to have somebody that can take forceful, courageous action.
Yes.
And this guy is not capable of doing it. He can talk a game, but he hasn't done really anything at all. And when we're arresting these sanctuary people, when he can kick Sheldon Adelson out of the office and actually do something for the United States and not for Jerusalem or the Golan Heights or anything else they want, when he can get something going on Hillary Clinton, I mean, come on, and right about Jeffrey Epstein too. This guy. Again, it's all part of the Israeli thing, supporting everybody, supporting Clinton, supporting Trump, supporting everybody. And it all leads back to Israel for that. By the way, it's all right in Israel to round people up. It's all right in Israel to have a wall, but they certainly will not allow it here. And, if we don't do something about our political system, are able to move on it, which means getting rid of the Israeli fifth column. And if we don't do something, the first biggest problem is the immigration thing. We're being swamped like Sweden.
Yes.
Then this country's finished. We're in a death spiral, and we need somebody stronger than this moron that we got right now. And hey, the guy's gutless. He's gutless. What can I tell you? He backs down. You know, as soon as he runs any resistance at all, the guy will back down. So that's my take on it, Mike. But one more thing, wanted to say there was that article that ran out, and somebody else referred to it today on organized crime and how you ran that article, and it's really worth reading about organized crime and how we've been led to believe all this time it was the Italians.
Yes.
And the media, which we all know who that is, has completely expunged the participation and even the dominance of the Jewish mob.
Yes.
So, anyways, it's worth reading, and there we go.
Well, Mayor Lansky was Jewish, and Bugsy Siegel, and but you're right. Corporate media has portrayed all organized crime members as Italian and all drug dealers as South American.
Yeah, and you know, Mike, I've said this before on your show. When any organization, when you control the finances of any organizations, which Meyer Lansky controlled the finances, and you also control the enforcement and muscle, which is what Murder Incorporated. Look up Murder Incorporated. It was almost entirely Jewish, run by Jews. They murdered 1,000 people in enforcing mob rule and organized crime rule. And if you've got the finance and you've got the muscle, you are that organization.
Yep.
You know, there's nothing else but finance and muscle. And so the old expression that from The Godfather, where you know, the Lansky character says, "Mike, we're bigger than U.S. Steel." Who's going to give that up? Nobody's going to give that up, and they haven't. Epstein's just another manifestation of it. And by the way, remember in Godfather, Mike, it's in the director's cut, where the Waltz, the head of the studio, another Jewish guy, just like what's his name, Harvey Weinstein kind of guy. But they're having a party for that little girl who's a little girl star, and Tom Hagen walks in. But in the director's cut, when he goes over to the guy's house, that little girl is over there too, and the implication is clear.
Yes.
He's a pedophile.
Okay.
Right.
All right, Peter, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with another phone call after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And looking at the email, one comment here I think has bearing on the current discussion. Trump has shown himself to be incapable of loyalty to those who helped him get elected. Julian Assange's leaks were instrumental in getting him elected, as was the alternative media, although I prefer the phrase independent media. How has he stepped in to help Assange? He denies he actually appreciated and named WikiLeaks as being good. What about InfoWars and Alex Jones? They've been deplatformed. I agree he's a coward. He's also a whole lot of other things that do not deserve respect. All right, we're going to go back to the phones now to Miles in Maine. Miles, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Thanks, Mike. I never called twice, but I had to this time, and it's not because I'm a Trump cheerleader by any means. But you know, this caller about 3 calls back, he mentioned Dustin. Dustin's not right on everything. Period. Dustin's a good call. Dustin is right a lot of the time, but he's not right on everything. Dustin's also a self-avowed Democrat, so take that with a grain of salt. You know, we talk about Trump. These people are talking about Trump. Let me ask you, Mike, have you ever seen anybody who the Democratic Party hated, the media hated, the world hated, and the Republican Party hated? I mean, is it any surprise he can't get much done? Yeah, Trump's made some mistakes. He sure has. He's not a politician. That's evident. He's made some mistakes. Nobody would have brought up vaccines. Nobody would have bothered with this immigration on the Democratic side. Hardly anyone wanted to touch it on the Republican side. Trump has done something with this economy. You look in Tennessee, I think it's Volkswagen just had a $7 billion expansion. Nissan, who practically runs the state, there's no state tax here because of them. So what are these people talking about? You know, and like I said, I'm not a Trump cheerleader, but I'm going to call a spade when it's a spade. It's ridiculous. And this guy's talking about, wasn't it Trump that decided not to go in Iran against Bolton and the rest of the crew?
Well, he called off bombing them in response to the shoot-down of the Global Hawk, but I don't think we can safely say that the decision has been made not to go into Iran.
Well, what had happened had he bombed them, though, that day?
Probably just would have dropped a lot of bombs, and that would have escalated the situation. The question was going to be, what would Iran have done?
Well, no, the question is, what would Russia have done?
Fair enough.
And see, a lot of people do not look at these things. They're reactionary. And Peter surprises me. He's a great call, and I like Peter. I like all these guys. But you know what? For them to say this about Trump, the guy that the media hates, the world hates, the Democrats hate, and his own Republican Party hates, okay? Give the guy some slack. You don't have to give him an awful lot. But to say he's done nothing, that's just nonsense. That's absolutely myopic.
Again, I'm going back to the 2016 campaign. He campaigned on vaccine safety, dropped the ball on that. He campaigned on cleaning up our very crooked election system. He's dropped the ball on that. He campaigned on Hillary in prison. He's dropped the ball on that. He campaigned especially on pulling us out of all these foreign interventions, and instead we're plunging further in. He campaigned on lowering prescription medications. They just pulled the plug on that one yesterday. So I'm sorry. In terms of the campaign promises, he's a disappointment.
Okay, but if you get the ball rolling and nobody picks it up, what can you do about it? My point is this. He made a point of it. Nobody else touched the question. So, you know what? It should have been up to some of these congressional and senatorial people to stand up there and say, you know what, this guy's got a point and I'm going to get behind him. But that's not what happened. He's fighting all these different factions. But for people to say that he's done absolutely nothing is so myopic and just so unconscious for people to say something like that. He's done some things. He's tried some things. And like you say, many things he didn't try that he said were campaign promises. But the guy has done something. And to totally say that he's done nothing, he's been able to effectively walk this line. People talk about how he is with Israel and all that. He is buddy with Israel. But look what he's got going. He's got Bolton and all those people. It took a lot of courage for him to say, we're not going to attack Iran.
Well, probably courage would have been not getting Bolton and Pompeo there in the first place, because they're the ones who are out there pushing for all the wars. Trump talks a real good shop, but as these other callers have said, he tends to back on down. Somebody says you're going to have Bolton as your national security advisor. Okay, Bolton gets to be the national security advisor. You're going to have Pompeo as Secretary of State. All right, Pompeo gets to be Secretary of State. And Trump is all hat, no cattle, as far as I can see.
Well, and here's the thing, though. You look at that, okay, and you say, and people can leverage it as to what Sheldon Adelson's doing. And I don't even know if he's still alive, even, is he?
Yes, he is.
Well, you say, people say that he got bolted in and he got this guy in. Well, who in the hell got Sessions in? And he didn't do anything.
Miles, I'm going to have to let you go here. We got to take another break for commercials. Back with another phone call after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to go right back to the phones to Paul in Montana. Aloha, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Rivero. All these people that are calling in and talking about President Trump's inability to fulfill campaign promises, they all have to be aware that Trump is the head of a Vichy government, just like France was for the Germans in the 30s. America is for Israel in 2019. Everybody in the United States government, congressmen, senators, et cetera, all of the political appointments since Eisenhower, they're all from Israel. We're in Israeli occupied territory. So talking about Trump's inability to do anything, That's totally ridiculous. Wake up! We're in occupied territory, just like Gaza, just like Palestine, just like South Africa. And with that, I'll get on out of here and listen to you on the air. And thank you for your patience.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Frank in New York. Frank, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
No problem, Michael. Thank you for taking my call. There's a local radio station I call, and I give them a list of 10 broken promises by Mr. Trump. May I list them?
Absolutely.
Okay. He didn't stop funding for sanctuary cities. He didn't build a wall. He didn't jail Hillary. He didn't get us out of the Middle East. He didn't get along with Russia. He didn't reinstate Glass-Steagall. He didn't overturn Obamacare. When they were talking about infrastructure, which would help out the working slobs in this country who got to drive to work, he walked right out after 2 minutes and they were calling them names. I mean, they've been doing it for 2 years. He never put a cap on the deficit. And Roger Stone had said indirectly, or actually directly, that he knew that 9/11 didn't happen the way it was and he was going to investigate it. And that never took place. But a couple of things he did do, the Saudis who were involved in 9/11, he sold them a ton of weapons. Congress, the Democrats in the House, the Republicans in the Senate, they said, we're sick of the slaughter over in Yemen. Cut it off. Stop it. Quit helping these people. He vetoed the bill. He undermined Roy Moore. He's turned his back on Julian Assange. Okay, he's increased sanctions on Russia, and he has hired more guys from Goldman Sachs in his time period, as if after 2 years, okay, now he's been in there longer now since then, but he had hired more guys from Goldman Sachs than Obama and Bush combined in their entire careers as president. Okay, that's all I have to say. You're doing a great job, and I understand where some people are coming from, but that's all I hear. Oh, the economy, this and that, and Trump is great. He can't do anything. He could do a lot of things. He could put the military on the border. He could stop a lot of the stuff. He could stick up for Julian Assange. There's a lot of things he could do. Michael, thank you very much for taking my call. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you very much here. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are now empty again if you want to call on in. So getting on back to immigration, apparently, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is continuing to push lies about the migrant detention centers even after a man was killed attempting to attack one. And she's out there making claims about how the lights are kept on all night, depriving people of sleep conditions. She said it's really all about the cruelty. Now, Mike Pence went on down there to take a look and find out if things were really as bad as Ocasio was saying. And all the media could do was sort of rant on and on about how Mike Pence just ignored the children, didn't pay any attention to them. So more spin here. So basically, we have a government that reads your email, requires a real ID to travel, and listens to our phone calls, but can't ask about citizenship on the census. Now, that caller mentioned that Trump has apparently already folded on the citizenship question. I had not heard that, and I'd like a confirmation about that. I thought it was still going into the court system. But yeah, look at the 14th Amendment. The census is supposed to ask about our citizenship to make sure we're eligible to vote. Democrats, of course, insist on background checks for all Americans who want a firearm, but no background checks for illegal aliens so they can vote in our elections. Trump has asked the Supreme Court to unfreeze the Defense Department money set aside for the border wall. Now, two lower courts have ruled against the administration in a lawsuit over the funding. Last week, a divided three-judge panel of the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco kept in place a lower court ruling preventing the government from tacking Defense Department counter-drug money to build a high-priority section of the wall in Arizona, California, and New Mexico. And again, back in the 1990s, there was funding passed by Congress for 700 miles of border wall, of which only 33 miles were built. And I don't know about you, I'd like to know where that money went. I'd like to know who said, we're going to pull the plug here. Now, the Democrats are out there screaming about, guns and mass shooters and got to take the guns away here. Unfortunately, the numbers are showing that the police in America kill far more people than mass shooters. And apparently, mass shooters have claimed the lives of 339 people since 2015. It's a very large number, but during the same time frame, police in America have claimed the lives of 4,355 citizens. Now, yes, some of these were armed and dangerous, others were innocent, unarmed, and included small children. So, okay. Apparently, after Trump's social media summit, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle where this outspoken Playboy magazine writer nearly came to blows with conservative activist and former Donald Trump aide Sebastian Gorka. This was in the White House Rose Garden. The Secret Service had to intervene. This encounter happened in full view of more than 100 right-wing social media stars who were at the White House for a summit focused on the grievances against Twitter and Facebook. So Playboy's White House correspondent Brian Karem, who doubles as a CNN political analyst, started the melee by telling the conservatives they're a group of people that are eager for demonic possession. And Gorka shouted, "You're a journalist, right?" Playboy still in business? It's been a long time since I actually bought one of those. I know that lovely mansion has deteriorated, especially after Hefner passed away. Apparently it's in bad shape, and it's up for sale. It's a beautiful, beautiful house. Okay, so anyway, at the social media summit, Trump gave a good speech. He railed against the censorship of conservatives by social media and labeled the Democrats communists. And then the White House cuts the live feed to take questions about transparency. Ironically, Twitter went out worldwide on Thursday as attendees gathered for the social media summit at the White House East Room, but came back up before remarks in which he accused the tech brand of making it intentionally difficult for people to follow him. There was that big stink in that court case about Trump blocking people who were attacking him on Twitter, and the court saying, can't do that. This is a public forum. The First Amendment applies, which I think could be extended to say the same thing about all of Twitter and all of Facebook and all of Google. These are public forums, and the First Amendment does apply. But the judge basically pulled the rug out from underneath the argument that Twitter is a private company and therefore exempt from the Bill of Rights. Okay. In a freewheeling speech akin to his performances at campaign rallies, Trump praised conservative social media figures for the blank you come up with, got applause for calling the mainstream media fake news, and bemoaned his own apparent difficulties with Twitter. And nothing will be done. Okay, so here's an interesting application for computers. Apparently, researchers from Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory have trained an artificial intelligence system called Word2Vec to read scientific papers to see if there was any latent knowledge that humans weren't able to find on the first pass. And the study published in Nature on July 3rd reveals that the algorithm found predictions for potential thermoelectric materials which can convert heat into energy for various heating and cooling applications. The algorithm didn't know the definition of thermoelectric, though. It received no training in materials science. Using only word associations, the algorithm was able to provide candidates for future thermoelectric materials, some of which may be better than are currently in use. So basically, it's making discoveries in scientific papers that are overlooked by we mere human beings. Getting back on out to the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, they've rejected bids to temporarily block a rule on federal funding for abortion clinics. The appeals court let a June 20th decision stand by a 7-4 vote, allowing the Trump administration to strip federal funding of clinics that failed to comply with Title X regulations. And California, Oregon, and Washington were granted requests in lower court to reconsider the measures. All right, more troubles from the world of Microsoft. Apparently, the Windows 10 cumulative update released by Microsoft on July 9th is reportedly causing a restart notification loop on some of the computers where it was installed. And the issue was reported by Windows users on several websites and support forums, and basically all describing the same problem, being told to reboot their devices again to finish installing the update, even though it was already installed. Little bit of an oopsie there. All right, Flower Foods is voluntarily recalling hamburger and hot dog buns and other bakery products from Walmart after plastic, small pieces of hard plastic were found inside the food. Pieces that could cause a choking hazard. So I have to keep an eye out for that one. Okay, this one's going to turn out to be a major lawsuit. Apparently, the Focus and Fiesta models of Ford cars have a flawed transmission. And what can happen is if, under certain conditions, the cars can slip into neutral while you're driving down the highway. And Ford is saying, that's not really a safety problem. Obviously, I would disagree. But apparently, they have known about this transmission problem for a while. They sold the cars anyway on that justification that if the car slips into neutral, it's not really a safety problem. I think the courts will disagree with them. Yeah, it is a major safety problem. Boy, can't make anything anymore. Over in Norway, we're getting the usual song and dance about a radiation accident. And it has to do with the Komsolett submarine that sank off Norway's Bear Island following a fire on board that resulted in the loss of life of 42 of the 69 crewmen on board. It's resting now at a depth of 5,577 feet. The submarine's nuclear reactor and 2 nuclear warheads are still on board. Now, as is the case with any radioactive source that can't be recovered, there's ongoing monitoring. And a good example would be the radiation capsule from Apollo 13, because they weren't able to crash that LEM on the moon, and it had to bring the crew back to Earth. They actually dumped it in the ocean, and it still had that fuel capsule attached to it. I go down and check that one every once in a while. But getting on back to the Komsolett submarine, scientists recently recorded radiation at the wreck site 100,000 times the normal level for the Norwegian Sea. And apparently what they're dealing with is radioactive cesium and about 100 becquerel per liter, which is very high. So the maximum level measured in a sample at the wreck site was 800,000 times higher than normal. Scientists noted that other samples taken from nearby did not contain elevated levels of radiation. Well, good, and of course down there at 5,000 feet, we're not expecting there to be visitors. Very, very dangerous stuff here. Okay. Japan's Hayabusa 2 probe has touched down for a second time on the asteroid called Ryugu. Took a lot of very amazing photos, and basically they've got the main navigation camera and a publicly funded camera looking past the sampling mechanism. And this is where the spaceship has touched down to get a hold of a sample. of this material that was blasted out by the penetrator a couple of months back, where they basically blasted a crater because they wanted material from inside the asteroid, not just the outside. So good for Japan. Great that they're doing that. So photos from the camera show views of Ryugo's surface at touchdown. The second shows the nearby rock before and after the sampling itself. All right, story out of Zero Hedge here. There's a new scientific study that just butts open deeply flawed assumptions underlying human-caused global warming, the Green New Deal. And it really comes down to the degree to which climate change is driven by natural phenomenon versus man-made issues measured as carbon footprint. Okay, more about this when we come back from these words from our sponsors. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're talking about this study that was done up in Finland, where they have been basically looking at how much of the climate is driven by natural forces versus human activity. And basically, the Finnish team found practically no anthropocentric climate change. They did a whole series of studies and basically said during the last 100 years, the temperature increased about 1/10 of 1 degree centigrade because of carbon dioxide. The human contribution was 1/100th of a degree centigrade. So why the big fuss over the last several years? Well, apparently a leading member of the United States Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change told a German news outlet that the purpose of climate change, the climate change agenda, is to redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. So that's what it is. It's socialism. They want to use climate policy to take wealth away from those whose work has produced it and say we have to give it to these other people because they're too warm or too cold or some such nonsense. This is coming from the IPCC itself. This is coming from the UN official. The purpose of the climate change agenda is to redistribute the wealth. Miley Cyrus is out there stating she refuses to have babies with her husband Liam Hemsworth until there are fish in the water, as she claims we're living on an angry piece of S planet due to global warming. So apparently she didn't get the memo from either Finland or the United States. So in an interview with LA, the 26-year-old who married Liam in December said she refuses to reproduce until we live on an Earth with fish in the water. Well, Miley, I hate to be the one to tell you this. There are fish in the water. I know because I go down to Aloha Tower and I see them all the time here. Speaking of fish, apparently a real-life Jaws swam into the waters of Martha Vineyards. Was estimated to be 25 feet long at about 5,000 pounds. And 25 feet was the length of the shark in the fictional book, later the movie Jaws. So, yeah, we're going to need a bigger boat. We're definitely going to need a bigger boat. Alrighty, over in Michigan, there's a family, and their homeowners association has ordered them to remove a statue of the Virgin Mary from their front yard. Apparently, it violates the CCNRs. And the Michigan family believes they're being unfairly discriminated against by the Homeowners Association. But while I'm a great believer in religious freedom and respect of each other's religious symbols, those Homeowner Association rules and regulations, they can be very intense, and you do need to pay attention to them. All right, there's some time for me to get on out of here and get some of this done with the rest of the day. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of wonderful things to share with you. Please take what you learn here, share it with everybody else that you know. Please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.